The dusty winds of Marok 7 howled incessantly, swirling in a constant dance of grit and decay. Tarek stood on the barren plateau, his eyes half closed against the stinging gusts. He had lived on this desolate planet for nearly a decade alone, with only the crumbling ruins of an ancient civilization and the occasional whir of an old sensor array to keep him company. There were no plants, no water, and no animals, just an endless expanse of ash and rock. Once, Tarek had been a proud member of the Drogan, a species known for their advanced intellect and spiritual enlightenment. He had been a leader, a trusted advisor revered by his peers. But now, here he stood, a solitary exile, condemned for a crime he had never committed. As he adjusted a rusty panel on one of the old machines, a sharp beep echoed through the empty air. Tarek froze. It wasn't the usual mechanical failure of his old equipment. It was something else, something he hadn't heard in years. Contact? Tarek rushed to the sensor array, wiping dust from the display screen. A small blip appeared on the radar, a spaceship just within range. His heart raced. It had been so long since he had last tried to send a distress signal. Too many ships had passed without a response, but this time, something was different. The Drogan's thin, elongated fingers danced over the controls, transmitting a message into the void. "This is Tarek. I need assistance. Please, I need help." Aboard the Solar Dawn, the crew was busy going about their daily duties, navigating the lonely reaches of space. The ship had just completed a resource collection mission, and Captain Walker sat in her chair reviewing the latest reports. The bridge was quiet, save for the soft hum of the ship's engines. "Captain, we're picking up something, Lyra," the communications officer said. Her wide eyes gleamed with excitement as she glanced at her console. She was young and eager, always on the lookout for the unexpected. "What is it?" Captain Walker asked, straightening up. Her voice carried the weight of years of experience, cautious but also curious. "It's a distress signal coming from that planet up ahead." Lyra pointed to the display showing the dusty world of Marok 7. "It's faint, but it seems to be from someone named Tarek." Captain Walker frowned. "This planet is uninhabited. Why would anyone be there?" Pax, the ship's security officer, a hulking figure with a permanent scowl, leaned over Lyra's shoulder. "Could be a trap," he said, his tone grim. "We've seen it before. Pirates use distress calls all the time to lure ships in." Lyra shook her head. "It doesn't sound like pirates. The signal's too weak. It feels real." The captain thought for a moment, tapping her fingers on the armrest. "Bring us in closer, but stay on alert. We'll investigate, but no one is taking any chances." The Solar Dawn descended through the murky atmosphere of Marok 7, its landing thrusters kicking up massive clouds of dust. The crew donned protective suits as they prepared to step outside. The air was thin and the environment hostile, yet there was something deeply unsettling about the planet's emptiness. As the ramp lowered, the crew caught sight of a figure approaching through the storm. Tarek's tall, thin frame moved slowly, his eyes glowing faintly beneath his hood. His appearance was alien, his pale skin and elongated limbs distinctly foreign to human eyes. The crew instinctively tensed, Pax's hand moving toward his sidearm. Tarek stopped a few meters away, bowing his head slightly in a gesture of peace. "Thank you for responding," he said, his voice resonating in the crew's head through the translator. "I am Tarek. I have been exiled here for many years. I need your help." Captain Walker stepped forward cautiously. "Why are you here?" she asked, her voice neutral. Tarek hesitated, his expression unreadable. "I was once a leader among my people, but I was betrayed, framed for a crime I did not commit. I was exiled here as punishment, and I have been living in solitude ever since. I have tried to reach out to passing ships before, but none have answered." Lyra's heart ached at the thought of anyone living in such isolation. Pax, however, remained suspicious, his eyes narrowed beneath his helmet. "And what exactly was this crime?" Pax asked, his voice filled with skepticism. Tarak sighed, lowering his gaze. "Sabotage. A sabotage that led to the deaths of several of my world's leaders. I was accused of orchestrating it, but I swear to you, I am innocent. My exile was the result of political machinations, a rival, Zarek, who sought to gain power by eliminating me." The captain exchanged glances with her crew. It was a compelling story, but one that was difficult to verify. And yet, there was something in Tarek's eyes, something that felt genuine. "Captain," Lyra said softly, "we can't just leave him here. What if he is telling the truth?" Pax scoffed. "Or what if he is lying? What if he did commit the crime, and we're being played? We don't know anything about this alien or his world." Captain Walker remained silent for a moment, weighing her options. She was torn between her instinct to help and her responsibility to keep her crew safe. "We'll talk more back on the ship," she said finally. "Tarak, you're coming with us. But know this, if there's any sign that you're not telling the truth, we'll leave you here." Tarak nodded solemnly. "I understand." Back on the Solar Dawn, the crew gathered in the ship's small meeting room. Tarak sat quietly, his hands clasped together as Captain Walker, Lyra, and Pax debated their next move. "We need to figure out if we can verify his story," the captain said. "If Tarak is telling the truth, then he deserves a chance to clear his name. But if not, we're walking into a dangerous political situation," Pax finished. "We could be aligning ourselves with a criminal." Lyra bit her lip, her brow furrowed in thought. "There has to be a way to get more information. Maybe if we contact his homeworld." Tarak raised his head, his voice soft. "My homeworld, Kylon, is governed by a strict caste system. Once someone is exiled, there is little hope of redemption. But I have allies, people who believed in my innocence. If we could reach them, perhaps they could help." Pax snorted. "And how do we know they're not part of the same conspiracy?" "Enough, Pax," Captain Walker said sharply. "We'll investigate this carefully. I don't intend to rush into anything." Tarek's expression was unreadable, but the faint glimmer of hope in his eyes didn't go unnoticed by Lyra. As the crew continued their deliberations, a massive dust storm rolled across Marek 7, trapping the Solar Dawn on the planet's surface. Tarek and Lyra sat together in one corner, away from the others. The silence between them was heavy, broken only by the distant howl of the storm. "What's it like?" Lyra asked suddenly, her voice barely above a whisper. "Being alone for so long?" Tarek's eyes grew distant at first. It was unbearable. The isolation, the silence. "I thought I would go mad. But in time I found peace. I found solace in the quiet, in the stillness of this place." Lyra frowned. "But don't you want to go home?" Tarek's shoulders sagged. "I do. But after so many years, I wonder if there is a place for me there anymore. My people are rigid in their beliefs. Even if I am proven innocent, I will always be the one who is exiled. The stigma will follow me, no matter where I go." Lyra reached out, placing a hand on Tarek's arm. "You're not alone anymore," she said softly. "We're here now. We'll help you." Tarek looked at her, his eyes filled with a mix of gratitude and sorrow. "Thank you," he whispered. The storm passed, but as they prepared to lift off, an alarm blared through the ship. Systems were malfunctioning, and the ship's main power core was failing. Pax immediately suspected sabotage. "Tarek, what did you do?" he growled, grabbing the alien by the arm. Tarek's eyes widened in shock. "I did nothing! I swear I—" "Stop," Captain Walker ordered, stepping between them. "Let's get to the bottom of this before we start pointing fingers." As they investigated the ship's systems, It became clear that someone had tampered with the power core, but it was not Tarak. Instead, the sabotage appeared to have been caused by an external source, likely a remote signal from space. "Someone doesn't want us to leave this planet," Lyra said grimly. "Or someone doesn't want us to help Tarak." Tarak's expression grew dark. "Zarek," he whispered. "He must have learned of your arrival. He's trying to ensure I never leave this place." With the ship repaired and the threat of sabotage momentarily neutralized, the crew made the decision to contact Tarak's homeworld, Kalon. The response from the authorities was cold and dismissive, refusing to acknowledge any wrongdoing in Tarak's exile. But then, a new message came through, one from an old ally of Tarak's, a former colleague named Irath. The message was short but cryptic, offering to meet the crew at a neutral station to discuss Zarek's involvement. Captain Walker nodded as she read the message. This could be the break we need. But as they set course for the neutral station, a new danger emerged. Zarek's forces, alerted by the earlier sabotage attempt, intercepted the Solar Dawn in deep space. The ship was outnumbered and outgunned, and a tense standoff ensued. "We can't fight them," Pax said, his voice grim. "Not with our current resources." Tarak stood at the center of the bridge, his mind racing. He had hoped to avoid this confrontation, but now there was no choice. If he were to have any chance at clearing his name, he had to act. "I'll send a message," Tarak said suddenly, "to the entire galaxy. I'll expose Zarek for what he truly is." Lyra looked at him in shock. "Are you sure? Once you do this, there's no going back?" Tarak nodded. "I've spent too long hiding. It's time for the truth." With the crew's help, Tarak broadcasted a message across the galactic networks, revealing the details of Zarek's crimes and the corruption that had led to his exile. The message spread quickly, causing a ripple of shock and outrage throughout the galaxy. Zarek's forces, realizing he had been exposed, retreated, leaving the Solar Dawn unharmed. Tarak's name, once tarnished, was now being cleared. In the days that followed, Tarak received word that the authorities on Kylon were being forced to reconsider his exile. Public opinion had turned against Zarek, and investigations were underway. But despite the opportunity to return, Tarak found himself conflicted. "I don't think I can go back," he admitted to Captain Walker one evening as the two sat in the quiet of the ship's observation deck. "Not after all that's happened." The captain nodded, understanding. Sometimes the past is better left behind. Tarak sighed, gazing out at the stars. "Perhaps, but I don't know where I belong anymore." The captain smiled softly. "You're welcome to stay with us if you want. The Solar Dawn could use someone like you." Tarak looked at her, surprised by the offer. After so many years of solitude, the idea of being part of a crew, part of something bigger, felt like a distant dream. "Thank you," Tarak said, his voice thick with emotion. "I think I'd like that." The ship sailed through the stars, leaving behind the dusty, barren world of Marok 7. Tarak, once in exile, now found himself on a new path, one filled with hope, friendship, and the promise of a future free from the shadows of the past.